Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Feuerschwanz, Fegefeuer, out July 7th on Napalm Records. This album has 11 tracks, 40 minutes in length, and this is the band's 11th full-length studio record. They are a German folk metal band. As far as the design is concerned, this is one of their most direct albums to date. From start to end, the incredible flow, the sense of continuity never stops. And that surprised me because when I look at the individual songs, this record is made up of 11 singles. That's the quality that it has. But when you put songs of this quality, of this magnitude together, you normally get a sense of a compilation, of a greatest hits style vibe. It's very disconnected and it's hard to find the continuity between songs. It's not the case here. They were able to create individual tracks that have a lot of life, a lot of energy, their own story to tell, but at the same time they found a way of connecting the dots between them so that the overall experience is not interrupted. And I realized this the first time that I heard this record, because when it got to the end of the album and I had it on loop and it went back to the first opening song, I was wondering what was happening. Am I at the end of the record already? Am I listening to the album for the second time already? The album felt really short. It didn't feel like 40 minutes. It felt perhaps like 20-25 minutes, and 11 songs went by like if it was only 5 songs. This album plays almost like an EP, not necessarily like a full-length record. And this speaks volumes to the overall quality of the design, the overall quality of the individual songs, but also the overall playability and engagement that this record puts forward. Great design, great idea behind it in order to really get the most, not just out of the individual tracks, but at the overall experience of going from first to last. As far as the sound is concerned, this is still a folky Feuerschwanz album, but it's a folky album that relies more on the heavier side of the band. I honestly felt like the guitars and drums on this album had a little bit more metal in them than some of the previous records. The folky elements are still important, and I felt that they offered two different perspectives, or maybe they had two different roles. The first role was obviously to create melody, and with that melody sometimes you get this sense of epicness and volume that makes these tracks feel and sound larger than life. This has always been the case, but it may be a little bit more defined on this record. The other aspect of the folky elements is that they create the perfect backdrop to the stories of each and every single song. I felt that the use of those elements was there not just to enhance that melody, not just to create that volume, not just to make the song super epic, but in order to also paint a vivid picture of what each track is all about. Connecting those two elements gives a lot of quality, it gives a lot of strength, and it adds an incredible amount of texture to the way the songs are put together. But the backdrop or the backbone of this record is definitely the drum sound and the guitar sound. I felt like those two elements were heavy in their own lanes, but also heavy together as one single strength. This is definitely a record that relies a lot more on the heavier guitar sound, the heavier drum sound, to push the metal into the forefront and then use those folk elements in the backdrop in order to create the right nuances, the right texture, the right movement, so that these songs are not linear in their design, not linear in their execution, and definitely not linear in how you're going to proceed them. This album is super layered, super textured, but really easy to digest. And perhaps the reason for that is that heaviness that the guitars offer, that heaviness that the drums put forward, coming together as one more often than not in order for the listener to really feel like you're listening to a heavy metal album, or to a metal album I should say, and not necessarily just a folky record. And the guitar sound is also very dynamic when it comes to the solos. The solos on this album add energy, they add life, they add movement to the songs themselves, and they always come at the right time, at the right place. Now, not every song has a great solo. Some tracks took a different approach, but that sort of diversity also works well in order to allow this record to have an individual fingerprint across each and every single element on each and every single song. Vocally, the album is as dynamic, as hooky, as catchy as you would expect any Feuerschwanz album to be. It matches what we've seen in the past. It's just perhaps a little bit better defined, specifically in the chorus. I felt like this album had incredible, every song had a hooky chorus. That's what it boils down to. Not just in terms of the lyrical content of the chorus, but also in how the chorus was being delivered. Also using backing vocals, choirs, in the chorus, adds to that catchiness, adds to that hookiness, elevates the choruses, elevates that moment of the song, and it really allows you to see the power, the strength, and the dynamic movements that the overall vocal performance on this record brings into the table. Great album vocally to match the great album sonically that they put together. Another outstanding record by Feuerschwanz. I don't think these guys ever released a bad album, and they keep setting the bar higher and higher with every release. I honestly don't know what the future holds, but it feels almost impossible to me that they can keep up this sort of quality record in and record out, and then again they release another album and the quality is there, never disappointing the listener. These guys have a great way of constructing albums, a great way of thinking music and then putting it together in a format that it's easy to digest, that's easy to appreciate, but it's not simple in how it's created and definitely not simple in how it's delivered. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Knochenkarussell. There is a little bit of darkness in this song. I felt that this track had a little bit of a dark underbelly, if you will. It's there in the sound at times, specifically coming from the violins, and it's definitely there in the vocal performance, specifically in the verses. It's a song that has that dark tone, or that feels dark, feels somber, maybe even sinister. Maybe sinister is a better word, and that becomes a little bit better defined throughout the verses. The verses really set the tone for that experience. The chorus is completely different, a lot more explosive, a lot more bombastic, with a lot more energy. Using the choirs in the vocals, as far as a vocal backdrop in the chorus, really enhances the track as well. It brings in a little bit of a lighter tone. It smooths away some of that somberness, that sense of uneasiness that exists in the verses. It takes it away. It makes the song a little bit more palpable. It creates the right ebb and flow, not just from a sound point of view, but even from how you feel towards that darkness that the song carries. And this creates a nice little change, a nice little ripple between the verses and the chorus. It's a great track sonically, great track vocally, a song that really depends a lot on the violins, on the sound of the violins and how it carries that melody through, allowing the guitars to come in with some thickness, but the violins create that underbelly that's really important, and then it's enhanced by the vocal performance. Once again, the verses set up everything that happens after, the chorus is just a climax. Next we have Highlander, using the folk elements to bring the lyrics to life. I honestly feel like this is one of those tracks. Every track on this album has that beauty to it, which is you can almost see a picture in front of you just by how the folk elements, either be bagpipes, violins, how they add nuances, hurdy-gurdy, regardless of what the instrument is that they're using, specifically more or less in one song. I always felt like tracks came to life and the lyrics came to life through them. This song, Highlander, is a perfect example of that. You definitely feel like you're in the Highlands, at least as the song starts. It morphs in, it becomes a little bit more dynamic, it becomes a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier as it progresses. The guitars and drums take a huge portion of the power of the overall thickness and sound that this track has, and then the chorus breaks that ceiling. The chorus, once again, with choirs behind it, infusing a lot of energy, allowing the song to still have the backdrop, the heaviness backdrop is still there, but there's enough of a change to create a break between the two different momentums of the song, making a more bombastic chorus with the bass line being exactly the same as it was in the verses. Just everything on top vocally allows the track to breathe a little bit better. It's also a track that has an outstanding guitar solo. It allows the track to go in a different direction. It allows you to see some of that brightness, some of that energy a little bit better defined, and then it closes off almost as you would a live song. This song feels live to me. It feels live in terms of how it carries itself from beginning to end, but the closing really feels like a live track through and through. Last but not least, Morrigan. This is the shortest track on the album, and it's a track that's very, very heavy as far as the guitars and drums are concerned. Specifically in the verses, it really keeps its essence, it keeps its shape as it moves into the chorus, but you feel most of the brunt of it in the verses. Allowing the vocals to grow and morph also allows this song to feel like it gains a little bit more as it progresses. The folk elements throughout the entire track definitely give it some texture. It's a song that has a sense of progression, and that sense of progression is really important. And then it has another chorus that stands out because it's catchy, it's hooky, it's memorable. It's a balanced track, but it's a track that doesn't necessarily stay consistently balanced. It feels balanced because the underbelly, the underlining of the sound experience is the same from beginning to end. But throughout the track, you see moments where more layers get added, and then you see moments where some layers are stripped off. This makes the song feel textured, dynamic, but still very layered. This is at Feuerschwanz with Fegefeuer, out July 7th on Napalm Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.